always, if you wonder sometimes why I pause, I do it sometimes just to mess with Troy. Troy's waiting for me to speak, and Teresa's waiting for me to figure out where I'm going to sit, where I'm going to stand, whatever, and for the camera. So I try to leave a little bit of suspense, right, with that. So it is good to be with you. Good to be with you today. I want to begin this morning reading from Psalm 121. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forever. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you. God, we pray that this time that we have, God, dedicated to searching deeper into your word. God, that we would see you for who you are. And that, God, you would come alive on the pages and alive in our hearts and our minds and all that we say and all that we do. So that, God, as we go out and invite others into your presence, when they hear us speak, God, they will know you. Thank you, Father. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Amen. We are in the midst of a new series, The Unexpected, and I challenged you to think about this before, to expect the unexpected with things. And this is not your typical, it's Christmas month, so we'll do a Christmas month's worth of sermons, all these kind of things. Now, yes, when we think about what took place, when we think about what happened, especially as we just had read to us from Luke chapter 2, it was a game changer, right? It was a moment that changed everything forever. It was a moment that had been promised forever. Friday night, I had the opportunity. We thought our broadcasting season was done. Moment of silence. Now that's over. But we had an extra game that we had to do, and now we're pretty sure we're done. So we said last week, right? But in this game, we broadcasted that actually took place here in Rockville, and I made the comment, that's the first time I've been to our stadium. I go to every other stadium, it seems like, but I was never able to do one from ours, and so it was kind of neat to do that. And as we're going along, there's it was Burton and Granger were the two teams, and Granger was a big underdog coming in, and they get the ball first, and it didn't go well. They when it's all said and done, they get 1 yard in 3 plays. And so they punt, and you're thinking, oh no, this is going to be a long day. Well, they punt, and then Burton goes down and scores, and extra points blocked. It's just 6-0. Granger gets the ball back, they go down and score, and it's 7-6. You're thinking, they may have a chance. Then they do an onside kick, Granger does, and they get it. You're like, wow, they really do have a chance. They go down, and it comes to a moment of 4th and 1. And for them, it was the game changer. They needed a whole yard. They got about 3/4 of a yard. And from that moment on, it went downhill. The final score was 47-7. For a moment, you thought you had a chance, right? And then there was that moment that changed everything. They knew they were up against it. They knew that it was going to be a difficult task. But everything had to work out perfectly for it to happen. Well, here's the thing for us. Everything did work out perfectly. When we think about our life in Christ that we read about that begins for us in the gospel narratives of Luke chapter 2, yes, That was a game changer for us. And everything worked out perfectly because the promised son, the one that we read about from the Old Testament that would come and live amongst his people, that in many ways is referred to as a theophany. Okay, what's a theophany? Well, it's God revealed in human form. Okay, and so that as you have this experience, as you have this moment that may change your expectations, may change the way you perceive things. Well, there is so much unexpected about this story. First off, let's start about the way he came. Not in expected ways. There was not this, there was a triumphal procession on his way out, but there was not one on his way in. Right? That there's not this moment. It actually kind of turned into one of those moments in TV shows that says at the end, "To be continued." I remember there's a generation here that does not remember a time in your life when you couldn't record anything. Right? That if you didn't catch it then, you just didn't catch it. You had to maybe hear about it. Now, there was always a time to hear about it at McDonald's or over coffee or something, and then came that moment where, you remember the size of VCRs when they first came out? Looked like the size of some computers. And I remember when we got one, you couldn't get them for $20 over at Walmart, for sure, right? But they had a remote with them, but it was on a cord. You remember that? It was connected to it, and you could go about 3 feet away from it. Well, I might as well just stay here and press play, It's kind of defeating the purpose, but it was just kind of neat to be this far away from it, and do it. And you had that moment to where now, okay, I'm not going to be there. I can put a VHS, think about it, look it up later, Google. And you could put a tape in there and you could watch it later. Well, then came that moment to where maybe you were going to be gone. You're thinking, do we have any blank tapes? Or you didn't label what the tape was, right? And and you're not sure. You're like, definitely as one of the kids, not knowing what's on there, I just knew I was going to record over something very important, and so I just didn't do it. And when we label it, or you get to that one that had like 3 different labels on it, they're all marked out. Okay, well, which one actually is this? And then, is it rewound? Oh, just the dilemma, right? That was the struggle that we had. All these kind of things. Well, then comes this moment that now you don't need a tape to record it. You don't need a tape to record it. You can, and now I know there's a few here that still don't have DVRs, right? You went from VCR to now DVR. Some of the older generation would have to Google DVR, right? Or go to somebody else's house and watch it. But then you could record stuff and go back and watch it whenever you wanted. That way, right? And so now comes that moment that if it's to be continued, well, if you've got 3 or 4 episodes lined up, you can go back and you don't have to wait for the suspense, right? We have an opportunity, unlike they had in Jesus' day. We don't have to wait for the suspense. We have it all recorded here for us. To see it and to replay it as often as we like. As often as we want. And we have the opportunity to go back and, watch it again. You have that favorite movie that you like to watch over and over again. We have the opportunity to replay this in our hearts and our minds and moments over and over again. And this moment in history was a game changer. And it's to be continued for those in Jesus' day, but we have the opportunity to know what happens. In Luke chapter 5, the story goes on. In Luke chapter 5, you have this moment that Jesus, it says he's standing out by the lake of Gennesaret, in the plains of Gennesaret. It's right there by the Sea of Galilee. And he's got this crowd that comes around him. We've kind of fast-forwarded in his story a bit, haven't we? From a baby born in a manger to now, 30 years later in Jesus' life. That now as he is going out and living and active in all that he does, he has developed this crowd that comes around him. They come and they're listening to the Word of God. They're listening to what he has to say. And he saw there at the water's edge a couple of boats. All right? And he decides to get into one of the boats while the fishermen over there washing their nets. All right? And he hops in and he tells them, he sits down and says, hey, push out a little bit from shore. Stop what you're doing. And just wait. So what do? They push out from shore a little bit and he begins to speak. And when he stops speaking comes another game changer. In Luke chapter 5, verse 4, it says, when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into the deep water and let down the nets for a catch. We're going to talk a little bit more here in a little bit about Simon's reply, what's behind it. But it says, Simon answered, Master, we worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets. But because you say so. Obviously, maybe, you kind of see that he has some level of importance and notoriety. He's got this crowd around him, right? And the things that he's saying. And so you've been in the presence of him while he's out there speaking. And now he says to the expert fisherman that hasn't caught anything, drop your nets over there for a catch. And I love Simon's response. He responds like a lot of us fishermen would do, right? We haven't caught anything, but I'm willing to try whatever works. I'm willing to try to do something. Because remember, this is not just head out on the lake on Saturday and going fishing. This is their livelihood. This is what they do. This is who they are. They're very professional. They're very live. Everything depends on the catch of the day. So he says, hey, because you say so, let's do it. Verse 6. And when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. Game changer. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. So full they began to sink. How would you like to have been the other fishermen that were signaled over? We're going to talk about who those are here in a minute. Like, where are they going? What are they doing? Don't they know we haven't caught anything out here? Don't they know that it's been a bad day? And so now they're just, hey, why not? Try it, right? And then they start to see all these kind of things. I have to think that the signal was one of an obvious response. Well, yeah, we're coming over there. We're seeing all these kind of things. Now they're filling both boats, all these kind of things. And the boats begin to sink. They're taking on the water. It's a game changer, right? That we think about this moment that you're in the midst of your day, out working, whatever it is that you do, right? Maybe the day hasn't gone like you thought. Maybe you're out, it's time to collect, the harvest as it is, you're looking and just things aren't going well, and you come back in and you're told, go out again, go see. Okay. Or dig here, see how things work out. There's something there. Hey, this hasn't worked out for a while, we'll try it because you say so. And that moment changes everything. Simon as Luke notifies him as Simon Peter. When he saw this, he fell at Jesus' knee and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." He had this, "Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner, forgive me," all these things. Kind of like Isaiah 6:5. "Woe to me," I cried, "I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." It's when you experience in the presence of something great, of someone great, that what Peter experienced, all these kind of things, we learn that he experienced a sense of self-unworthiness. He says, "I'm a sinner. I'm a sinful man." Now, we can obviously look in this moment, where is Jesus going to go? They're in the middle of a lake. Now, we can fast forward and read, well, he walked on water, he could leave him, right? But in this moment, Peter's not aware of that yet, right? And so, obviously, he's not saying, "Time to jump ship, man. I'm a sinner. Get out of here." All these kind of things. It's this. It's more just this statement of what he is experiencing and what he's going through. It's his response. A man of unclean lips, like Isaiah. And when we realize this, 90% it says of chronic patients who see today's physicians, it says they have one common symptom. 90% of the cases, the first symptom was fear. Fear, anxiety, I'm not getting any better, and so we stress ourselves out, or we have this anxiety, or we have fear of what the response may be, and we don't know exactly how to handle it, and so actually we become more sick in many ways sometimes than we are. And it amplifies what we're experiencing. Peter is in this moment of like, what just happened? And he has this sense of self-unworthiness because his experience changes everything. Job 42, at the end of Job's book, he says, "My eyes had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." Verse 6, he says, "Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." He had this, I'd heard of you, but now seeing you. Maybe not with my eyes, but seeing you with my eyes, with my heart, with my mind, with the experiences I have in life. That at the end of it all, that sense of self-unworthiness, you see, experiences change everything. Don't they? The experiences that we have, it changes everything. It changes the way we respond in those moments. And when we look at this, expecting the unexpected, I can't imagine if you nailed down Simon, you got him and said, "Be honest, did you think anything like this would happen this day?" I can't imagine that he would even come close to putting some story like this together. They had a day, they'd been fishing all night and not caught him. But experiences change everything. Experiences change everything. And so we have Peter and his companions. What it says they're astonished. Verse 9. They're astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And then we learn who some of his companions are, right? 3 words, "and so were." James and John, sons of Zebedee, Simon's partner. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for me. You will catch me." So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed him. What a day. Right? What a day this must have been. Your livelihood, everything that you do. You're walking away from this experience. At the very least, you're curious. Right? At the very least, you go, okay, you have my attention. At the very least, you're wondering, he did this, what will he do next? I don't know if maybe they thought they'd live on next day and go have another great catch of fish. I don't know. We don't know what they thought immediately would come about. But what we do know is that they left everything. Jesus said, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't let fear be the most common symptom in your life following me. It says, fear is a normal reaction. I read this the other day. Fear is a normal reaction to the experience of God's glory. These words of assurance were frequently a part of a theophany. Remember we talked about that God revealed in humankind. They brought the assurance of the forgiveness of sins. Do not be afraid. And we hear that phrase, we read that phrase over and over again in the Bible. Don't be afraid. Paul was told that. Don't be afraid. Paul was told that. Don't be afraid when, well, what was going to happen at the end of his life? John was told, don't be afraid. Countless men and women throughout the Bible have experienced those words. Don't be afraid. Because experiences change everything. Exodus 27 says, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. And this is interesting because if we look at here, you have in Luke chapter 5, verse 5, and then verse 8, you have two different responses. It goes from epistates to kurios. Well, okay, what are those words? Well, epistates is the Greek word for master. That was Peter's first response. And that word actually means like overseer, Lord, or commander. And so he sees him as one in charge, doesn't he? But then he goes to kurios, from master to Lord. Because experiences change everything. Simon answered, Master, we worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, let down the nets. Listen, boss, because you say, we'll try. We'll see what happens. But then his tone changes. Go away from me, Lord. Master, Messiah, Savior. I'm sinful. Why? Because experience is changing. And so now, knowing what we know about this experience, because experiences change everything. And from now on, what you're going to do. Now, you're no longer just going to catch fish, now you're going to fish for people. Maybe they didn't understand what that meant, but they're going to understand. What we see in this moment is the guest list. Jesus calls fishermen. And we know from the rest of the experience that he doesn't just call fishermen, but what we do understand is none of the apostles were called from the priesthood. Right? Jesus came in unexpected ways, and his calling took place in unexpected ways. They weren't the professional clergy of Jesus' day. He called, we might call, average, regular, common folk, right? He called us. He calls us to go. And so when we think about this, when we think about what this means for us, we think about the opportunities that we have. We are a part of the guest list. We are a part of those who are invited in to receive the calling of Jesus. Now, our experience may not be out in a boat and dropping over a net and catching so much fish that the boat begins to sink. But hey, sometimes we got some classrooms filling up, don't we? We have 15, 18 kids in classes. Begins to overflow. Jesus invites us in, and he calls calls us on mission to live for Him. There was a book that came out a while back titled The Unlikely Missionary. And it talks about a young man that grew up in Juarez, Mexico, was the son of missionaries, and would live in some poverty-stricken areas. That as he reflects upon that, people would dig through trash to find what they needed to live every day. This is one of the quotes that he has. He says, "It doesn't matter how bad our circumstances get." He says, "There is always hope. And hope is never a cliche." There is always hope. And hope is never a cliche. When we are invited in, when we take part of the life that God has called us to, when we play the role that God purposed us, that God created us, that God invited us into, it may not happen in the way that we expected. He may not call us to somewhere we expect to go. He may not call us in the way that it has this grand celebration, and there's this party, and here he comes, here she comes, all these things. We may show up uninvited. We may show up unexpected, but make no mistake, when we show up, the hope of God shows up. And it's not just a cliche. No matter how bad the circumstances may get, no matter how bad it all may seem, when we're given an opportunity, our cup will run over. When our boats will run over, everything will begin to fill up, and we're given an opportunity to live on mission, live on purpose, for a purpose, to live for something greater than we are. And we have at that moment to drop everything and follow Him. Maybe not knowing what tomorrow will bring. Maybe not knowing what the next day will bring. But we understand that what we receive in that moment, that we understand what we live for in that moment is something greater than this world has offered us. And when someone says, "Yeah, you're a fisherman," we say, "Yes, but from now on, I no longer seek to go to the lake, go to the river, go to the ocean to catch fish. Now I have a new way, I have a new thing that I'm doing every day." From now on, we are His disciples. You know, it's very interesting that we look at these folks, these non-elite, unexpected ones that are called. Spend some time going through the list. It's maybe not who we would gather together. I mean, not only did He call fishermen, He called a tax collector. He called someone who literally took from the top to pad his own pockets. He called someone that had an eye on just the money. He called those who maybe desired a position that wasn't theirs to grant. He called those that became a betrayer, a denier. And one is known for being a doubter. But make no mistake, when He called, they dropped everything and followed. Didn't come from the elite. Came from those every day, trying to earn a living. Came from those every day, just trying to serve, just trying to do what they can to provide for them. You see where we fit into that? See, it's not that hard to make that leap to see how we fit in that equation. It's not that hard because Jesus, when He ascended to heaven, His invitations didn't go with Him and they're no longer offered to Him. His invitation is always there for us. When we expect the unexpected, and we see this story for what it is, a story of life, a story of hope, a story that has a future, that has a promise, we begin begin to understand passages like Jeremiah 29:1. And I'll give them hope in the future. We begin to understand when he says, my word is a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. We begin to understand when he says what our attitudes and our mindset should be. That it should be like Jesus, right? Who surrendered everything. Who left everything and led us so that we could leave everything and follow him. Expect the unexpected. And you will live in unexpected ways. But with promises of God. Father God, we thank you. God, we thank you for this opportunity, God, that we have to receive your call. That God, there are moments in our own lives where we feel unworthy in your presence. God, that we feel like we are incapable, God, of receiving your grace because we're sinful. But God, you offered it to us. And it's up to us to receive it. And it's up to us, God, to live it out every day. And God, we know that your invitation is not dependent upon stature within a community, within a business, within a household. That your invitation is to all of us. And you ask us, are you willing to leave everything and follow me? We're not really sure about what our response is. Just look back at our lives. And if we don't like what we see when we look back at our lives, what are we willing to do? God, we thank you for calling. We thank you for inviting. We thank you for welcoming. We thank you for your forgiveness. We thank you. It's in your Son's name that we pray. Today, as we reflect upon the promise that is there for us in Christ, we're given an opportunity. We're given an opportunity not to sit back and complain saying, why do you call him and not me? Or what's better about her than it is about me, right? Because it's not about stature. It's not about where you stand in an organization. Because we're all members of God's family, and we have all received a call. We have all been given an opportunity to live for something greater, for someone greater. How are we going to respond? We'll find out from today on. If we can help you in any way, make you become a child of God, that opportunity